The story of the Wendigo is one that has been told for generations, and it begins in a small, remote village deep in the snowy forests of North America. The people of this village were tough and resilient, used to harsh winters and the challenges of survival in such a cold, unforgiving environment. But this winter was different. It was the coldest and harshest anyone had ever experienced. The snow piled up higher and higher, and the animals that the villagers relied on for food had disappeared, leaving the village on the brink of starvation. The villagers grew weaker with each passing day, their hope fading as they struggled to find enough food to keep themselves alive. Among the villagers was a Tuck, the best hunter in the village. He was known for his bravery and skill, always bringing back the largest game to feed his family and neighbors. But even a Tuck was having trouble finding food this winter. No matter how far he ventured into the forest, he returned empty-handed. The situation was becoming desperate, and the Tuck knew that if he didn't find food soon, his people wouldn't survive. So, one cold morning, with a heavy heart, a Tuck decided to venture deeper into the forest than he had ever gone before. He knew the risks, but he also knew that he had no other choice. As a Tuck journeyed deeper into the woods, the forest around him became darker and more foreboding. The trees were tall and twisted, their branches heavy with snow, casting eerie shadows on the ground. The wind howled through the trees, making it hard to hear anything else. A Tuck pressed on, determined to find something, anything, that could save his village. After hours of walking, he was about to give up when he suddenly heard something, a faint voice calling his name. He stopped and listened, his heart pounding. The voice was soft and familiar, and it sounded like his wife. A Tuck, come this way." But as a Tuck followed the voice deeper into the forest, something felt wrong. The voice was his wife's, but there was something strange about it, something that made him uneasy. It sounded distant, twisted somehow, like it wasn't coming from a real person. But a Tuck was desperate, and he couldn't afford to ignore any chance of finding help. He kept moving, the voice guiding him through the dark, snowy woods. Finally, the forest opened up into a small clearing. The wind died down, and the voice stopped. The silence was deafening, and the air was so cold that it seemed to freeze a Tuck's breath in his throat. He looked around, but there was no sign of his wife. Instead, the clearing was empty, and everything was still. That's when a Tuck felt a presence watching him from the shadows. Slowly, he turned, and there, emerging from the darkness of the trees, was the Wendigo. The creature was unlike anything a Tuck had ever seen. It was tall and thin, its body looking like a skeleton covered in tight, stretched skin. Its eyes glowed with an eerie, unnatural light, and its breath hung in the air like a cloud of death. The Wendigo's claws were long and sharp, and its mouth was filled with jagged, yellow teeth. It stared at a Tuck with a hunger that made his blood run cold. A Tuck knew, without a doubt, that this was the creature from the old stories, the Wendigo, the spirit of the wilderness that preys on the lost and the desperate. A Tuck's first instinct was to run, but he knew there was no escape. The Wendigo was too fast, and the forest was too dense. Instead, he gripped his spear tightly and prepared to fight. The Wendigo circled him, moving with unnatural speed and grace. A Tuck tried to keep up, swinging his spear to keep the creature at bay, but it was like fighting a shadow. The Wendigo was relentless, always just out of reach, its glowing eyes never leaving him. Every time a Tuck struck, the Wendigo dodged effortlessly, its laughter echoing through the trees. The creature was toying with him, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Finally, in a desperate move, a Tuck grabbed a sharp branch from the ground and drove it into the Wendigo's chest. The creature let out a terrible scream, a sound that echoed through the forest like a death cry. For a moment, a Tuck thought he had won, that he had defeated the monster. But then, the Wendigo laughed a deep, twisted sound that made a Tuck's blood run cold. The creature pulled the branch from its chest and tossed it aside, its wounds healing as if nothing had happened. The Wendigo's eyes glowed even brighter, and it advanced on a tuck, ready to end the fight. Just when it seemed like all hope was lost, something unexpected happened. From the edge of the clearing, a figure appeared, Ituk's wife. She was holding a bundle of burning sage and a small fire, and she was chanting an ancient song that Ituk had heard only in whispers. The Wendigo stopped, its form flickering as if it was losing its power. The creature recoiled from the flames, its eyes filled with fear for the first time. Ituk, seeing his chance, grabbed the branch again and, with all his strength, plunged it into the Wendigo's heart. This time, the creature howled in agony, its form disintegrating into a whirlwind of snow and wind. The wind roared around them, shaking the trees and sending snow flying through the air. But then, just as suddenly as it had started, the wind stopped, and the Wendigo was gone. Ituk fell to the ground, exhausted but alive. His wife ran to his side, and they embraced, grateful to have survived the nightmare. They knew that the Wendigo was gone for now, but the legend would live on, a warning to all who ventured too deep into the cold, dark forest.